either. If you were to ask me what's the first genocide conducted by corporations or big industry, then I would say it's the second half of the First World War. Because the generals in the First World War at a certain point were done. They said, okay, we'll stop this war. It's nonsense, we're killing each other, slaughtering these people, and we're not achieving anything. And the industrialists said, no, you go back to the battlefield and slash it out, and because we're making a shitload of money supplying you with all kinds of nonsense that's not really working, the mustard gas and all that stuff. It makes way too much money for us, and we know exactly what we're doing, we make a lot of money, so we'll just, please go back, carry on. And that's genocide, of course, and it's because of the industrialists. And one can argue that Second World War, for some companies, can also have been an industrialized genocide, or industrially driven, corporate driven genocide, although, of course, Hitler is a pretty special case. But there's one going on right now, in my opinion, which is the hunger in Africa, in the Horn of Africa. And how do I know that? Well, because, and I was wondering about that and asking a family member of me who just went to Ethiopia. Why? Because it is an amazing place. Ethiopia, Somalia, those areas are now prime agricultural development grounds, because there are huge aquifers underground. There's an enormous amount of water there. And of course oil is not far away, it's in the Sudan. So if you have the combination of toppling the Sudan resistance and creating a new country there, allowing development of the oil by Shell, just like we did in Nigeria, and you make the fertilizer for the intensive agriculture, you can have a booming industry there. So I saw a presentation a few months ago which described the deal that was made in Ethiopia and in Somalia and in these areas, and it's amazing because it's as if there's nobody in charge there, and of course there isn't. You know, if you are a London banker or a US banker or just a guy with a lot of money that can get an XE or a Blackwater or any private army or any group of political pundits or lobbyists, as we could call them. You could say that lobbyists are almost like the mafia hitmen. And exactly, maybe I'll link to a video of the Young Turks where Cenk Uygur explains how lobbyists are not only positively incentivizing but also very strongly negatively incentivizing because of the unknown effect of what you say or do for them, or when you're dealing with them. There might be suddenly no money somewhere. Anyway, but that's a side issue. You know, you go into the country, you bribe whoever is there. If you can't bribe them, you replace them, which is very easy because you give money to the opponents, and you easily compete them out of the the ruling party out of the market. So with rallies and all this stuff, it just costs next to nothing, and you got your government that you want, which makes the decisions that you want. And the decision that they made was to create contracts, international financial agreements and trade agreements, which were about gutting the country of, or let's say basically allowing the West to garden in these areas, in Ethiopia as well. And I know it's for sure it's Ethiopia because I also found a study that describes how this negatively impacts the livelihoods of the pastoral farmers. We know they're starving to death at the moment and they're not being helped. Everybody says there's no food there. And but the agreement was really ridiculous because there would be no tax for 6 years and no export, and there would be nothing, no cost whatsoever. Just go ahead, do whatever you want. It's your territory, it's your land, and it's easy, of course, to understand because let's say even if you have 1 million officials to bribe, if you all give them $100,000, that's much better than they are earning right now, and they'll be leaving Ethiopia immediately and trying to get a job in the West somewhere. Because it's a beautiful country, I heard, but it's not very safe. And it's Wild West because they're flying over the fields of the farms, and you can find movies about it. So I was pretty disgusted because we have a newspaper in Holland. And so to me, that's the only thing you get there is, of course, you have lots of the local people. And if you are a mindless corporatist trying to develop that part of Africa, you might want simply there to be no people. And it might be an accident that there's a drought, but it's not an accident that there's no real structural help, because there are financial interests that could be leveraged for food easily. But anyway, my newspaper, my Dutch newspaper, had a front page, which I find truly disgusting. 14 reasons to not give money for Africa. It's on what I consider the best paper in Holland. The hunger in Africa is not a natural disaster. It is the result of failing policy. Of course, it's a ridiculous assumption to say that policy is failing. It's not policy. These people in Africa and Ethiopia do not determine the policy. That's what Western financial institutions do. Rain. There's lots of points here. Here, Ethiopia, Kenya and Uganda have done too little for agricultural development. So the farmers don't have the reserves. And the nomadic cattle farmers have. So it's their fault. They didn't do it. They sold their land to intensive agriculture, and you can see videos of massive development there at the moment by the Western companies like Monsanto. And but they're stupid, because these people that live there, you know, the inhabitants of that land, they didn't manage the land right. You know, it's like it's like just you have this camp of refugees all starving, and in the middle of that there's a little section with fat Westerners doing barbecue every day, and looking over the fence like, these people they don't arrange their food. And maybe they, in order to feed the barbecue, they steal a goat from the poor people every day. It's completely oblivious of the real of the cause and effect relationship. We caused that famine. We caused their problems. Food help here. So okay, food help doesn't reveal the cause of the hunger. So as poverty and overpopulation, bad functioning market. Of course, you know, you get a ridiculous market if you dominate it, if you completely eradicate it. Here and bad market and disastrous land farming practices. Well, I know one of the disastrous land farming practices, and that is of course intensive agriculture. But it goes on, and here food help strengthens the legitimized failing regimes. Yeah, they're blah blah blah. But number 5, Ethiopia has hundreds millions of acres of arable land sold. They sold it or rented it to outside investors. And that's why you should not give help to Africa. It's on the front page of our best newspaper. It's really, you know, it really makes me vomit. So what's the logical step if you have people and children dying of hunger? And apparently they are farming, Western countries are farming the most fertile parts of these lands. Then you say, as your Western company farming the most fertile part of the land, you say you immediately divert whatever you're farming there in order to stop the hunger. If you don't, because you don't know, you know, how the deal was struck, because this is like, it's amazing. It is like, what they're pretending here is like the government in Ethiopia has anything to say about it, but they don't. Because they're 5 people in a hut or something. Okay, they have nice buildings now, they got some millions, and they got nice offices, but they don't have an army. They cannot do whatever they want. They cannot enforce sovereignty on their own territory, which is, it's just kind of the new way of war, is that you don't fight, but you lose your sovereignty, which is that you forget to fight for your sovereignty. Here, starvations are always preventable, says Amartya Sen, winner of the Nobel Prize for Economics. They only happen in countries without functioning multi-party democracy. Do you know, like, it's just amazing. This is like the strongest repudiation of this newspaper and I've been reading it my whole life, and it's the most balanced. It's right wing, but it's not strong right wing, but this is just disgusting. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So what's happening is that the Western corporations are committing genocide in Africa, willing, and that there is a developing meme, a developing mindset that's being programmed in our Western brains, that it's just survival of the fittest. George Bernard Shaw is alive, and we're committing euthanasia, but it's all a big accident. It's disgusting, really. I'm disgusted.